Listen, don't tell me you are a good person if you are defending bad people. All right? It'll make sense later.
I'm LaPorsche and welcome to Up and Out. Listen, today we are continuing our topic of conversation with Angela Rose, the founder of PAVE, which is a sexual assault survivors group. PAVE stands for Promoting Awareness, Victim Empowerment. Sexual violence has been covered more in the media in recent years than ever before, be it Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, and more. But we still have so much work to do. In part 2 of this interview, Angela and I spoke up more about the Danny Masterson trial. And you're going to want to take a listen to this. She has some amazing things to say. Check it out. But wait, not too fast. I got to give you a little background on this case. So actor Danny Masterson was sentenced on Thursday to 30 years to life in prison after he was convicted on 2 counts of rape earlier this year in the Los Angeles courtroom. Masterson received the maximum aggregate penalty for the crimes, all right? The 47-year-old, that 70 Show star, was found guilty in late May on 2 of 3 counts of rape and was taken into custody following the verdict. The jury was deadlocked on the 3rd count, all right? He initially pleaded not guilty to raping all 3 women. Now, this all went down at his home in separate incidents between 2001 and 2003. This case has some ties to Scientology, multiple celebrities, as we saw some of them recently spoke out, and so much more. And listen, Angela addresses the amount of time, the delay, why victims wait, why survivors wait. What is the thought process behind this? All right, now, definitely take a listen. So we know something that's been happening that's really big in the news that I definitely want to ask you about is Danny Masterson. All right. Now, he was in the 70s show. He was seen as this happy and funny character, but off camera, he was committing very heinous crimes at gunpoint. And I don't have to say allegedly anymore because he has officially been sentenced. So these very violent stories we heard from the victims. What really stood out to you about this trial as someone who was deeply embedded in this type of work? What stood out to you about this trial?
Well, I think what stood out for me is just how difficult it is for people to come forward. For this trial specifically, there's been a lot of allegations about the Church of Scientology, trying to keep these survivors silenced. And I think that's another thing. Delayed disclosure is very normal. So a lot of people in this case and in many other high profile cases, well, why did it take so long for these survivors to come forward? Delayed disclosure is very normal. Number one, a lot of survivors, we blame ourselves. There's a lot of catatonic, it's called tonic immobility, but it's a way that survivors just freeze. It's not just fight or flight like a lot of people think. A lot of survivors, because of these stress hormones, we literally freeze. And a lot of times we blame ourselves. But I think what's so interesting in this case too is a lot of people conflate, or they see this character on TV and they think of this person. And we were there also for the Bill Cosby case with the survivor supporting her. So I think a lot of times we see these folks that we see on TV as these characters that they play, but we need to remember in real life that they can be very different.
I also want to, you answered a lot of my next few questions. So thank you so much. I love a good interviewee. Do you think that his rape sentencing was more of the fairer ones? I mean, 30 years seems to me like he's going to be in there for a long time. You can never really, I feel like it's so hard to try to say, is this all that the victims need? I can't say that, but I will say that I was very happy to hear that he got 30 years. Were you?
I was very surprised because we hear time and time again, even in, every community in America, that even, child rapists, God forbid, get like a year. I mean, it's just like so often, like 9 out of 10 times that the perpetrator is not going to serve even a day in prison. And so I was very surprised. I will say I really applaud the judge and what she talked about, the body autonomy that was stolen from the survivors. I thought that was a really powerful piece for us to, always be reminded the notion of consent. Consent is a freely given yes, not the absence of a no. And so if there's drugs or alcohol, coercion, oftentimes there isn't even a weapon involved. In this case, drugs are a weapon in a lot of ways. So I think it's important that the country is changing. I feel it was very interesting for me to see the backlash of when, we saw a lot of celebrities speaking for his, I don't want to say defense, but for his character, if you will, coming to his, writing these letters that did see the light of day. And so that's upset a lot of the survivor community.
And I definitely understand that. I mean, I just don't understand how you could hear those specific stories and then continue. A lot of the times we say, believe all women, in this, are there cases where you're like, what do you say to the people that may be lying? I feel like as a journalist, I have to be fair and I have to ask someone who really has went through this, who interacts with real life victims all the time. What type of stance do you take against women who, or just any victims who make something up for a quick paycheck and they get caught in it? We've seen this happen with people with Chris Brown, he's like, nope, I got the receipts right here. This is not what happened and stuff like that. What do y'all say about that?
I mean, it certainly does happen. I know as a kidnapping survivor, there was a high profile case of a woman who kind of kidnapped herself. There was footage of her buying the rope and all these things. So yes, those stories, they do happen. And unfortunately, it makes it even harder for survivors to come forward. But I will say this, more often than not, it's survivors that are not believed, not supported, not heard. And we need to celebrate survivors' voices. So does it happen sometimes that survivors make this up for whatever reason? Yes, that's a very, very small percentage. When there's millions of us in this country that are suffering in silence, too ashamed, too afraid to, we're just too afraid to speak out. So I think it's important that we do talk about that, but that is, it's so not the norm.
Part of it. Yes. Yeah. I have to ask, but because I get asked that question often, Portia, as a journalist, why do you initially, and I'm like, well, that just doesn't beat out the amount of times it actually happens. We just heard about the high profile case of the girl who pretended like she saw a toddler on the side of the road. And it's like, yes, but that is so rare. There are millions and millions and millions of victims everywhere across the universe, that are being assaulted every day. How can we be there for sexual assault victims in a work environment, in a family environment, and a stranger environment?
Oh, all those are such great questions. And PAVE actually does training on all of those pieces. So I think that the typical corporate presentations on sexual harassment is so outdated. Oftentimes people don't take it seriously. So we've developed a really engaging, really talking about creating a healthy, happy work environment because oftentimes you don't even ask the trauma-informed responses, what happened to you? And even there's ways in which work environments can create such a better culture to support survivors and to create safe work environments. And in terms of schools and for all of these pieces, go onto our website at shatteringthesilence.org. We've got so many free resources. We have courses on consent, on bystander intervention, and supporting survivors that are totally free through PAVE University. And it's important that all of us have an opportunity to make a huge difference on an issue that impacts all of us.
Okay. And I know that you wanted to talk about a new collegiate program that you're doing. Please tell me more about that. I'm very excited to hear about it.
Yeah, so we are actually doing a lot of work on high schools in the K through 12, but also on college campuses. And why this time right now is the most important, we are in what's called the red zone, the time from Labor Day when all the students are coming back to school through Thanksgiving break. Statistics show that students are most at risk for sexual violence. So we have a nationwide campaign. We're doing a national summit called Shatter the Red Zone Summit at the end of the month on Friday, September 29th, and it's totally free. We have watch parties all over the country. But if you're a parent watching and you want to get more information, please do tune in, and you can get more info at shatteringthesilence.org.
Angela, Girl, thank you so much for being here. This is what a great interviewee looks like. She came with the statistics. She came with the energy, the personal story, what you can do, solution oriented. This is how we come at this. Thank you so much. I just know so many people are going to be educated, and I can't wait to have you back again.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, LaPorsche. Appreciate you.
Of course.
Angela, you were such a great interview. Listen, we talked about so much behind the scenes, like how consent can be so sexy and what constitutes consent legally and so much more. So we will definitely have her back. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Also, again, on a serious note, if anyone you know has been impacted by sexual assault and needs to speak with someone, please call the National Sexual Assault Hotline number at 1-800-656-4673. Again, that is 1-800-656-4673. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, girls.